Joining us today, we have a very, very special guest. He is a former NFL linebacker, Pro Bowler, and NFL Hall of Fame nominee. Please welcome Takeo Spikes. Takeo, how you doing today?
Outstanding, my brother. Outstanding. How are you?
Good, good, good. Now, I want to get into a few different things going on, but I want to start from the beginning. Was there a youth football coach or a mentor of yours or a relative or just a friend or an athlete that you looked up to growing up at that young age that inspired you to get into football?
My first introduction really to football was growing up in, just in the neighborhood and everybody playing. But the true factor or the influencer for me was my father. He introduced me to the game. And when he felt like he couldn't coach or teach me anymore or to help take me to the next level, that's when he kind of directed me and pushed me off into certain programs
Okay.
that different coaches and things of that nature. So that really was the jump start of my interest level when it came to playing the game at such an early age.
Awesome, awesome. Now, you played for the Cincinnati Bengals, the Bills, the Eagles, the 49ers, and the Chargers. What was that experience like for you?
I mean, it was awesome. I think number one, all of them paid very well. And then the biggest thing I got out of it was I got a chance really to see different parts of the country
Okay.
and embed myself inside of that community and see what it means to be a Californian, to see what it means to be, a Philadelphian, and even just see how the people of Western New York conduct themselves and how committed and how much they love the game. And regardless of how much snow may be coming or whatever bills paid or whatever bills that need to be paid, I've had several fans on numerous occasions come up to me and say, you know what, I got this bill that needs to be paid, but you know what? To hell with it. I'm not paying it. I'm saving up for my season tickets. So, it's just for me
Yeah,
it was like, I got to give you your money's worth. That was just
right.
my mentality. And I played the game with a lot of pride. So, for me, that's what I kind of took over every stop that I went to was taking on that sense of pride and just me knowing I want to maximize the opportunity and the potential that God gave me.
Now, you played in a time when football, I'll just say, is was completely different. The rules, the way you can hit a quarterback, the way you can tackle. Can you talk about, I guess, the evolution of how things were in your career or your earlier career and how they are now, and the ways that things are different and harder for defenses?
Yeah, when I played in the game, even first started, it was a brutal game. You played the game in between the tackles, and it was all about let's see who can we make tap out. If you ain't big, if you're not fast, if you're not strong, there's no way you will be able to last 60 minutes. And that was, for me, that was the way that I trained. That was the way that you were taught. But looking at the game, when I started to exit the game was going more to a passing lead. Uh, Me coming in, I'm just thinking, talking football talk, three wide receivers, one back. That probably was ran maybe 35% of the time, 40. But when I got ready to leave out of the game in 2012, they was running that close to 70% of the time as base packages. So the game went lateral, horizontal versus them being played vertical. And so now, 10 years later that I'm out of the game, you starting to see the trends, the shift of the game started to being back played vertical, meaning the athletes are better. I think you find better athletes throughout this time. Some guys that typically they're big and you probably say they couldn't do this, but they doing small people stuff, So when you look at that, the game has came around full circle. And so it's just like fashion, man. Like what we used to rock in the 80s, people looked at it in the 90s like, man, I ain't rocking that. But now you got people in 2022, and it's like the 90s is coming back in from a style standpoint. So, it's all comes around. Recyclable.
Right. Now, you played for the Bills, and in the AFC East. I'm from Providence, Rhode Island. I'm from up in New England.
Why am I even talking to you right now?
Can you talk about what it was like going up against the Patriots, going up against Tom Brady, as a defender, during those times? You guys had some pretty crazy battles.
Yeah, we did. And at the current time, you knew Tom Brady was going to be special. He had ripped off about 4 Super Bowl wins by that time, well, 3. And Bill Belichick. So essentially, we were going against the GOAT and the GOAT of coaching, and then also the GOAT of the quarterback position, maybe of all time, of all players. It was hard, but it was a challenge that you really looked forward to because they were so far ahead of the game when it came to game planning. They would find out your weakness and truly attack it, and it was apparent who that person was and how they attack you as a defense and also as an offense, as well as special teams. So for me, that was a big, big opportunity because, it's one thing to have the respect of your peers, and that's what you want. Like, that's why you play the game. But when you have another team and another coach saying, he's the guy, this is the guy that will disrupt everything that we do. So we need to make sure that he's accounted for. That's all you ever really want as a player from an individual standpoint. So it was a big challenge, and we accepted it week in and week out.
Okay. Now, as a linebacker, around those times, Ray Lewis was tearing the league up, of course. Brian Urlacher, Teddy Bruschi, Willie McGinnis. Can you talk about some of the other linebackers that you maybe emulate their game or you were inspired by that helped you elevate your game later on in your career?
Yeah, it was. You had to. I think Ray is inarguably probably one of the greatest linebacker that played the game from a middle linebacker perspective. But it was a lot of guys. Even I remember coming up through the ranks and myself playing the same position as Ray. You look at London Fletcher, Zach Thomas, another guy that really stands out to me. And even like guys who I really looked at and just like, for me, I knew my DNA was my DNA. Or London Fletcher's DNA was his DNA. Ray Lewis' DNA is his. So what I used to do was look at guys who played at the time when I played that were a little older. I think about Junior Seau, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
He was the guy who I really looked up to as far as bringing his tenacity, the way that he did week in and week out. I remember looking at Lawrence Taylor, he was an athletic freak, but just his motor, his ability to continue to keep going and would never stop, and so, you take a little bit from everybody's game and you may try to add something to what you already have or what you do well. And that was pretty much my game. It was, I was physical enough to play the game from a vertical standpoint in between the tackles. But then I had the ability to play sideline to sideline because I was blessed with speed and also play in the passing game too. So, yeah, man, that's really what it was. That's what it boiled down to.
Okay. Now I want to get into your incredible podcast that you and Tutan Reyes created. Can you talk? You've spoken about him in the past, and can you speak about how he helped you during your career and what it means to you to have this podcast with him?
Yeah, it first started with my photography coffee table book. I wanted to give something back to the game, and I love sharing and telling stories. So I decided to write a book and also do the photography in it as well. It's titled Behind the Mask. You can pick that up on Amazon too.
Okay.
Shameless plug. But so I just went around and highlighted guys and some of the greatest backers that ever played the game and got them sharing their story on how did they become great, what made them an outlier. Myself, me, and Two-Time, we played together in Buffalo, and we knew of each other before then, but when we played with each other, it just kind of brought us closer together. And bottom line is, we were just sitting around kicking the can like, man, he was doing media stuff for another corporation. I was doing the same thing. And it was like, man, let's do something together. And that's how we came up with the podcast. And it's been successful. And we love it. I think the biggest compliment that I know I receive is when people really enjoy us going back and forth, whether or not if we agree or disagree, but being able to have that chemistry that really shines through the camera. Because one thing people can say and they will acknowledge, if your brand isn't authentic, then they'll call you out for it.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that we do so well is not only just being authentic to our audience, but being able to have a conversation, two black men educated, and we can talk about things randomly as if we're on the streets, but then we can also talk about things from a C-suite level executive because both of us went to school to get our MBAs together. So that's what makes it so good. And then also a special treat, we like to go bring on guests, and the guests are fun, they're transparent, and we create an environment to where we allow our guests to be the author of their own autobiography. Right. Everybody has a mask, regardless of whatever chosen field that you're in. When you come to the BTM Lounge, we know you get an opportunity to pull down that mask and to share your story and become vulnerable and help someone else.
Now, you were recently inducted into Georgia High School Football Hall of Fame. What does that honor mean to you?
Huge, huge honor, because I was voted in the inaugural class, and I didn't really realize we never had a high school football Hall of Fame. And I think about all of the guys that came before. I think about Ron Simmons. I'm dating myself now, but Ron Simmons, the wrestler. What people know him used to be a wrestler, but went to Florida State. I think of Charlie Ward, Heisman Trophy winner. I think of Mel Blount.
Okay.
He was the guy who made the NFL change the way that you can't hit a receiver at the 5 yards because he wouldn't allow them to get off the line of scrimmage. I think of Eric Zier. I think of, Hines Ward.
Yeah.
Like all of these guys, man, they point blank, plain and simple. Everybody can say they played high school football, right, but everybody can't say I was that dude. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like I was that dude. And so now it's etched into football immortality from the high school standpoint. So you ain't got to say that. You can just point, man, do your homework. It's up there. So it's a huge honor, huge.
There's millions of young boys and girls who look up to Serena Williams, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Tom Brady, you, Ray Lewis, anyone in athletics or just in general. What would be your message or piece of advice that you can offer them to get into athletics, especially professional sports?
The game teaches you so much more than the obvious, meaning, this generation, everybody talks about, I want to get to the bag. Like, I want the bread. And I get it. Like, it's good. I benefited off of it immensely. But what I will tell you is this. The life lessons that you learn playing organized sport, meaning what parents spend 18, 16, 17, 18 years trying to get kids to understand these words: adversity, discipline, communication, responsibility. All of that you learn within 2 to 3 practices of playing organized sport, and you're able to tie it all into each other. So my thing is when you play the game, yeah, we know what the end goal is, but don't underestimate the value that you pick up out of it as you continue to go on through life. So I'll tell you the same thing my mom told me. She was like, boy, you need to be educated now because the game ain't gonna last forever. So for me, yeah, I went back, finished school, but the life lessons that you learn while going through something, trying to build something, regardless if you come from a different household, but when you walk inside of that locker room, you're up under one roof, even though you came from different backgrounds, and the unselfishness that you have to drop your ego at the door and say, you know what, I'm willing to work with you, you're willing to work with me, let's see how far it goes. That's the priceless thing that I get out of it more than anything.
Is there anything that you can give fans a sneak peek of, or anything they can look forward to in terms of any events you're doing or anything you have going on in the Georgia community?
I'm always doing something, but I would just say first thing first, uh, tune in because I'm on every week, depending on when this show, SEC Network, ESPN. We always talking football, but I think the biggest thing is Behind the Mask podcast is we're continuing to grow and we're picking up a lot of steam volume across the board on all social platforms. You can find us on every one. The visual side comes with YouTube. You can see the entire episode. And we're really creating a lounge to where our guests and us, myself, Tutan Reyes, we can go in and just be truly authentic, call out what we see, and really challenge each other to not so much point a finger at who is right and who is wrong, what is right and what is wrong. And I feel like if we continue to do that, we cover